Let's get the thoughts of the latest events of David Scullion, Deputy Editor at BrexitCentral. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
Let's start, if I may, with Jeremy Corbyn yesterday on the Andrew Marr Show on the BBC, reiterating his view that actually it's not possible for us to remain in the open market. He was also quite candid, I thought, about his reservations about the EU.
Yeah, well, you've got to remember that Jeremy Corbyn has been a Eurosceptic for his whole career, and it's only since he became Labour leader that he pretended to back Remain. And it's really good to see Labour finally coming around to this position. And obviously Barry Gardiner was also saying on Sunday that Britain can't stay as a member of the single market, but still wants access, which is exactly what the British government want.
Except, of course, he did say that he does approve, for example, of the workplace legislation the EU has given us over the past 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's also, I guess, the position of the British government in the Great Repeal Bill, which will just copy and paste all EU legislation across. So I think that, despite the rhetoric, they are pretty much on the same page with the Conservatives on this issue.
What I'm not quite clear about is why we keep hearing, for example, about the examples of Iceland and Norway with regard to the open market, and also Turkey with regard to the customs unions. Are either of those favoured options of yours?
Not really. What we're looking for is a bespoke British deal. Iceland is obviously a really small country, really successful, but very small, whereas Britain is the fifth largest economy in the world. So what we're looking for is a bespoke deal that really reflects our size as an economic powerhouse.
Now, we always get complaints about the BBC from political parties because, and I think that by and large they're doing something right. Labour say they were very anti-Labour in the last election. Now the Tories are saying, Liam Fox in particular, that they are far too biased in their coverage of all matters related to Brexit or the economy. And I have noticed the BBC does say things like, the economy took an upturn last month in spite of Brexit. And I wonder why that's always necessary to give that as a kind of caveat.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for the BBC because their narrative, unfortunately, has been that Brexit is a mistake, and anything that doesn't fit their narrative, they have to preface.
But that was the narrative of Theresa May and the government and the Labour Party before the referendum.
Yeah, and I guess we're all coming around to the idea now that Brexit is actually quite a good thing, and the economy hasn't tanked. We've had record employment, and maybe not despite Brexit, maybe actually Brexit is quite good for the economy.
And let's turn, if we may now, finally, to moving forward on this. We've also been hearing about the need for, or the possibility of, maybe a kind of transitional period after the deadline kicks in. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, a transitional period does sound fairly sensible, but the key point is that it needs to be time limited because we can't have the idea of Britain staying in a halfway house indefinitely where we don't have control over our borders and we're still sending huge amounts of money to the EU. So, any transitional deal does need to be time limited. We need to know how long we're staying in there. And that will actually make it more certain for business and more certain for the people that voted to leave and take back control.
David, thank you for your time this morning. David Scullion there, Deputy Editor at BrexitCentral. That was the kind of macro view of the Brexit negotiations. That was the economic overview and the political overview. This will also, of course, affect individual...